Okay, very good. Okay, hi Megan.
Hey,
Welcome,
Sarah.
welcome. Thank you so much for getting online with me. I think I'm going to do an episode maybe on my side. You're going to do one on yours. So we're really just genuinely collaborating on this together
Yes.
today. I'm
I'm
I'm so honored. And so from my
okay.
side, I just kind of want to catch people up in case they're listening to my podcast for the first time. Um, I went through the death of my partner a few months ago, and I reached out to my amazing coaching community and asked some of the like more somatic coaches, coaches
Mhm.
that weren't so much on mindset, but more kind of like bodily experience to really kind of walk alongside me in my grief journey. So, because I didn't really need coaching on it. It was more like I needed some support for my nervous system
Mhm.
and all the things that were happening for me emotionally on the inside. And Megan is one of the people that stepped up and said, I want to help. And I remember our first exchange in private message. You mentioned story work and you
Mhm.
mentioned parts work, both of
Mhm.
which I kind of went, ooh, what's that?
Yeah.
I have like a very limited idea of what parts work might be, but I obviously
Mhm.
don't know. So I would love for you to fill my audience in on what those are.
Absolutely. And before I get started, just thank you so much for having me and for letting me be a part of this. It's so important. Grief comes in so many different ways, and it comes in waves. And so different modalities are sometimes needed at different times. Um, but the story work part is a certification I did with Coach and Kim Job, where the basic idea is we live often inside of our stories. And by that, I mean, we, from the time probably we were very young, we have created stories about ourselves, about our life, about our existence, about our needs, about what should be, what shouldn't be, what's okay, what's not okay, how we need to show up in the world in order to get maybe attention or validation or love. All of these come from experiences that we have, starting from the time that we have memories, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
The parts work comes from IFS theory, internal family systems theory.
Heard of that? Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea about this is that many parts make up a whole, and humans are no different than that. And in our case, we have many different parts that can be like our habitual thoughts, our feelings and reactions or responses to our outside world, to our circumstances, to the things that we choose to do or maybe don't choose to do. Our choices are what dictate how we show up in the world, right? And by extension, how our true self is or isn't expressed. And so there's a little bit of overlap here between this work and story work, which I know that Coach and Kim took from that as well in creating their certification curriculum. So if we don't create the space to drop in, we're so often up here.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that are listening, I'm pointing to our brains.
Yep. Yeah, and that's me. That's where like I
Uh-huh.
spend most, or I did spend most of my time up there.
Yeah, that we we miss out on a big portion of what's going on for us if we can't or don't or aren't introduced to how to drop into our bodies and how to connect those two so that we can find ourselves in a safe place to remember things that happened and they will come up organically.
Hmm.
I have a session that I offer. It's called a story mapping session where it's a safe framework. And by safe, I'm I want to be clear this is not therapy. I am not a therapist. This is not trauma therapy. This is a space to get curious, to open your consciousness, to open your awareness of what's going on in your body so that you can then hear the messages that are
Mm,
coming up for
yeah.
you from maybe the energy, the stuck energy you might feel in various parts of your body, or the fluid energy. It's been miraculous for me
Yeah.
to learn how to listen to my body and how that's connected to my thoughts and to my past experiences, the stories that I
Mm,
had been living in even into adulthood. It's sometimes painful work, I won't lie,
yeah.
but it is 1,000% worth it to be able to come to a place where you release yourself of that story, you release yourself of that narrative, and you realize the truth of the situation or the truth of your lens through which you've been viewing life is actually different. And there's so much freedom there.
Okay. So that just makes me want to like, I mean, I have
Okay.
a couple questions. I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Would you say parts work different than because something I kind of leaned into a while back and read some books about and journaled about for a while. Would that is parts work different or similar to like what we call shadow work or like light and dark side?
I'm sure there are elements of that that
Okay.
come up in it.
Okay.
Um, Parts work can be the different selves within us. Like sometimes when I'm doing some work, the inner child bubbles up, some needs that
In
maybe
parts,
weren't.
do they have names like that in parts work? Like you,
Yeah,
okay.
you can do that. Like
Neat.
there is definitely an inner child in me, and there's one that's different around the age of 5 and 6 and 7 for me.
Hmm.
And maybe there was at age 10, 11, 12. It's however makes sense to you
Okay.
to organize it in your mind as you're learning about it and exploring and trying to go through this work. Often there is a teenager in there.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a rebellious teen. Maybe it's a protective teen,
Okay.
an independent teen. It's just going to depend on what your formative years were like.
I
There
see.
might be a young adult,
Hmm.
one who wanted to go to college, maybe, but the opportunity wasn't there. And so maybe there's some resentment or some anger around or there could be feelings around scarcity or life's not fair, that kind of a mindset.
Okay.
So it's just going to depend on each individual,
Gotcha.
what what life's deck, what cards were dealt.
What curriculum we were handed? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds a little bit different because the way that I had studied it a little bit, it was like, oh, Sarah, meet judgy Sarah, meet
Hmm.
critical Sarah, meet insecure Sarah. But I sort of, in at least in the work that I did, I saw them more as like just me now, just that like it was more of a personality trait versus like a younger version of myself
Yes.
where maybe that's where insecure Sarah first, you know, came about.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
I have an example, like a personal one that I've debated sharing, but we're coaches. We tend to just be open books.
Yeah.
At least I am. I mean, when you have a podcast yourself,
Yep.
you tend to be an open book.
Yeah.
So I'll share with you a very pivotal moment for me. And it came up while I was doing the story coaching certification. And maybe to back up even before then, I've noticed for myself since beginning coaching certification in 2020 at the Life Coach School, it wasn't an immediate recognition or understanding, but over time, even if I'd have a thought breakthrough or awareness, and I would I'd be at this crossroads. Okay, is this serving me? No. Okay, I can choose something different. Even if I do the cognitive work,
Mhm.
I couldn't figure out why I kept falling back into shame. Shame seemed to come up for me a lot. And it kind of baffled me because I thought I was doing this work to move through it. And so it was actually during the certification that Kim walked us through this exercise. It's similar to what I do in story mapping, but you first you want to create safety. And in my story mapping exercise that I do with clients, we first drop into our bodies, with breathing, breath work or breathing. I walk you through a guided imagery. That's the best way I can describe it, and then do some energy clearing if that's needed. And then you think of an experience that you had in childhood. And for me, I was so resistant to let this one come up that I decided, okay, this is the one that needs to come up. And it was an experience that I had. I know I was under the age of 10. It was probably 8-ish. And what you want to do when you're going through this exercise for yourself is you can picture it in your mind. And so I could picture myself in our backyard in the town in which we lived at the time. It was midday because I remember this was in Arizona and the sun was bright. It wasn't overly hot, I don't think. And it was during a time when money was really, really tight for our family. At the time, my parents had 5 kids. One more would come later. And and my dad had gone back to school, and so it was extra, extra tight. And I remember there were there were various restaurants that would throw out food.
Mm.
And so essentially, I guess what people might call today, or maybe they used to call it dumpster diving. I don't know. But I remember coming home. This was what was happening is we were coming home with a car that had some items in it in the back in the truck bed, I think. Yikes. This is real.
Mm.
It had to have been a Saturday or maybe summer because we were all there, parents and the 5 siblings at the time. And we had the food and whatever else we had found in this trailer or back of the truck. And a few of us were sitting there and we were going through it. And my sister was excited about some candy that we had found. I remember they were those orange circus peanuts.
Oh, yeah.
And she yelled out to a friend that was passing by because we were up high and we could see over our fence.
Mhm.
She was all excited showing the package. I mean, she was younger than me and it was genuine excitement. And we all shushed her. I did, my mom did, and we're like, shh, don't tell them. Don't bring attention to us. Don't let them see what we're doing or what's going on. And she quieted down really quickly. And, you know, the kind of the unspoken message is this is shameful. This is this is not what everybody else does, right? And so in this process, which is also what I do with my clients, you go through what were you feeling at the time? Shame and judgment. What were the actions that happened? I shushed my sister. I never told anybody else about it. And fast forward, I've never really addressed it or talked about it until last year during the certification. And now this is the second time. What did your body do physically? I shrunk over and wanted to double over and hide. Like I was experiencing in that moment what I had experienced as a child because I was taking the time to allow that memory to come up in all of its messiness, in all of its even yucky feelings. Like I literally remember feeling my chest wanting to kind of cave in. I was getting shaky. the other thing you address is what was the need that was in question here, and that was stability or, enough provisions and whatnot. And you consider the treatment that you received and maybe the protection that you offered yourself or others did or did not. And then kind of the belief that came of that, like what you had decided in that moment. And I remember I realized that I think is one of those experiences that really cemented for me in my mind that we are less than. We're not normal. We don't fit in. We're separate, different from those in our communities or in society or in, fill in the blank, fill in whatever group. And I didn't realize how much that story
Mm.
really stuck with me. And how you know it's a story is because you see that theme popping up, that pattern
Mhm.
about how you interact with others in present day. Or you can look back, that happened under the age of 10. I can look back and see other periods of time in my life where that same belief, that same decision that I made in that moment, bubbled up. And it kind of directed not just what I did and said, but how I felt about myself and truly the possibilities that I saw or didn't see for me. And, I guess by extension, my loved ones, those whoever were in my life at the time. I don't know, maybe that helps.
Yeah.
If any family members are listening, I love you. And it's good to be honest and raw
Mm.
and real.
Yeah.
I'm I've committed to myself from the very beginning of coaching certification that I will show up authentically and vulnerably. That doesn't mean that I don't still have vulnerability hangovers because
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. But if you're coming at it from just such a place, the word that's coming to mind as I watch you talk about that is it's tenderness.
Yeah.
I feel,
Yeah.
yeah, there's not like a you know, mm, that's just the word that, and I don't know if that resonates with you, but I
Yes.
think if it's coming from that place, it's coming from a place of love and compassion and tenderness, then
That
I don't
is
know.
that's a great observation because as you're bringing that to my attention, yeah, as I was sharing that, I definitely wasn't feeling judgment
Yeah.
or shame like one, in a previous time I would have for sure.
Yeah.
The emotion that came up that I felt that maybe you heard or saw was, yeah, tenderness is a really good way. It was love, it was compassion for, we were all doing the best that we knew with what we had at the time, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong about it, there's nothing right about it. It just is. It's just that is what life presented at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for for going there and for showing
Sure.
people what it can look like to be vulnerable while
Yes.
being kind and
Mhm.
gentle with yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the trick. Yes. Our ego wants to come in and kind of be the organizer and say, that's bad, that's right, that's good, right? Like, so yeah, be gentle.
Yeah.
Always be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. Beautiful example. So when I shared that I was going through my grief journey, what
Mhm.
was it about when I shared that that did make you say, "Hey, I want to help"?
Yeah. Um, well, I am a parent of a queer kiddo.
Mhm.
And just to preface this, he's doing great and thriving,
Mhm.
and we are all in a very good place. I just want to make sure that that's understood. However, in the beginning, it was it was really hard. I'm not going to lie. And I have been open about that on my podcast, in the book that is currently in the editing process, going
Mm,
to be published this spring that I wrote. It's called Transparency, Parentsee.
title. Yeah.
Uh, but the way that I related to you in grief, that I don't know that people really understand unless they they also have a queer child.
Mhm.
There is a grieving process to go through. My kiddo's identity shifted from the time that we first learned of it till about 2 years later, because not a less understood phenomena of teens, young adults exploring their identity. It's considered normal and natural to explore your talents, your gifts, your interests when it comes to school or a career choice or professional choice, or whether it's the arts or sports, maybe even dress, right? Your fashion sense.
Yeah.
But when it comes to our own personal identity, that is a lesser understood or spoken of. I think it's because talking about sex in general there's been so much shame around it for decades, or yeah, at least that, probably longer.
Mm,
So the identity my kiddo started out with, it evolved as they learned more about themselves. And so eventually shared with us that he identifies as transgender.
yeah.
And so I didn't know it, but I was going to need to grieve
Mm,
the child that maybe I had come to know, or maybe had expectations about, you know, at that time, but also maybe looking forward to the future.
yeah.
And I learned, like, I would never trade this journey for anything. I learned to focus on hearts and souls, and I realized how much we look to the external to define or make sense of our world, whether it's a person's hair color or style, whether it's the clothing they wear, the glasses or the hats or other accessories or shoes, what their choice of profession or course of study is, what they drive, what they eat or don't eat. We really, or how they believe, what observances they participate in, like when it comes to religion or faith or spirituality, what what clubs, organizations, or interests that they cultivate or are involved in, participate in. And I learned through this experience that the heart and the soul of my child was always there, and that has not changed. And so while I might grieve what I thought or was going to be, or maybe what I expected, because that's what society has defined, or the boxes that were available, right?
Programming. Yeah. Yeah.
Framing, yes. Um, I've learned that that's not what really matters. What matters is our souls, our
Mm,
hearts, our love, and our light. And that's not to say that every once in a while I don't feel a tug. I do,
mm,
especially when Facebook memories will pop up, from a decade ago or however long ago. There is a tug.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And I see that picture,
Hmm.
and I think it's normal. I
Yeah.
think it's natural to just miss or grieve just a little. And I think it's only problematic if we don't allow ourselves to feel that, acknowledge that, metabolize, alchemize that, and then do our best. A coach helps to alchemize that energy to meet your higher vibration and see the beauty,
Mm,
see the potential for deeper love, deeper understanding, a more expanded view on life and on people and on loving.
yeah. Yeah. I came across this term today that I'd heard before, but it sort of resonated with me at this stage of my journey. And it was talking about post-traumatic growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of like sat with that for a little bit. And I noticed that I was sort of in a place where I was like, yeah, I want to make meaning out of this. I
Mm-hmm.
want to, of course, I want to always, like I understand I'm going to carry forward with me this grief, but I want it to expand me
Mm-hmm.
in some way. Um, and so I realized I was like, okay, I think I'm in that kind of growth period because I'm open
Mm-hmm.
to that instead of kind of being, where I was kind of stuck in this shouldn't have happened. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
this. I don't like this. I don't want this to be my life, to like,
Yeah.
okay, I know that there is a takeaway and an opportunity
Right.
to use
Right.
this experience
Yeah.
for my
What you
good and then the good of consciousness. So,
what you just described is essentially the difference between pain and suffering, right?
yeah.
We're going to experience some kind of pain, whether that's hurt or longing or disappointment, whatever that might be. But
Mhm.
it's that resistance, it's that pushing back, it's that denying the existence of whatever is.
Mhm.
That that's where the suffering comes from when we're just not allowing what is to exist.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes. And I can remember even just a couple of weeks ago, just being kind of curled up in a ball. And I was aware enough to know that I was resisting. So I remember just laying there
Amazing.
crying my eyes out, just bawling, laying in the fetal position, just saying out loud, no, I don't want to let go. I don't want to let go. I know I need to let go, but I don't want to. That's like, and by let go, I meant at that time what I was kind of grappling with was, I just was hanging on to just physical, things and
Hmm.
pictures and these kinds of things. And my higher self was just telling me like, if you let that go, you can experience the energy and the beauty of what he is now, like
Wow.
versus, yeah, I was just like, I don't want to let
Profound.
go. Yeah. And it felt, honestly, Megan, it felt like I was in labor. And it was like, I had this imagery. I was like, I
Yeah.
know it's like asking me to just push, just give birth, just let it go. But I was like,
Yep.
nope, I'm not ready. And then some things happened that I think needed to happen. And I was able to release that. And I'm
Mhm.
having a very different experience of it now since that, I'll say birth of the things I kind of needed to let go. But so yes, I absolutely understand, and I hope everybody understands the
Yeah.
difference between the pain and then the suffering side was, yeah, so much
Yeah.
resistance. But again, I see that as I look at that, I'm like, that was absolutely like a part of, I have to have the contrast,
Yes.
right? If we didn't know what resistance was or felt like, we wouldn't
Hmm.
know what, the
That
process entailed.
expansion. And
Yes. So I needed to go
I
through that.
I totally relate. I
Mhm.
have learned I've had to go through this transformational period to become a different person that can publish this book that is in
Mm.
the works
Oh,
currently.
yeah.
So I have gone through, I call it many cycles of contraction and release, that push and that pull. So yes, it is. It's literally, it's in many ways symbolically giving birth
Yeah.
because you can feel those sensations as well, those vibrations in your body.
Yeah. Very true.
I can. You
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. And I'm getting there. Like I will say, like it, definitely from the time I started this journey, asking people to help me, get out of my head and drop into my body. It's only been 5 or 6 weeks.
Hmm.
I think you're about maybe the 15th or 16th session that I've had in that amount of time. Plus, I'm in therapy, and she does a really cool somatic modality. So I'm definitely like learning it and feeling it, but I still feel like I'm just like baby. I'm just a baby, a newbie, a total rookie in that, but so much bigger than it was before. And I can only imagine, I can't wait, a year from now, to like be talking and just see the growth, that
Yes.
post-traumatic growth that's happening, to see where it is, even a year from now. That is actually makes me excited now versus yeah, before I was just like,
Wow.
no, I don't want to.
Sarah,
Yeah.
I just feel moved to just offer you this. I just want to say that I see you
Mm,
and I honor you for navigating this in such a bold and courageous, expansive, and contractive way.
mm,
Um,
thank
I
you.
am so touched. I'm so grateful to be a part of this 15 or however many more that you've reached out to. Uh, Often we don't ask for help. And so I honor you and I see you and I am loving you. This is transformation. I don't know if you've ever heard the idea of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, and there's this point when they're in the chrysalis and they're just kind of in liquid form
Mm,
called bug soup. I sometimes feel like I'm in that bug soup stage
yeah.
longer than maybe I'd want to, but the beauty is, I mean, you will come out and you'll feel those wings
Hmm. Yeah.
and then you might start over again.
Right. Yeah. And this isn't my first time. It is my first time with this particular circumstance, but it's certainly not my first time of going
Yeah.
through pain and suffering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I was walking my dogs earlier today, and I sort of had this conversation with myself, even where I was just so grateful for, thinking about our upcoming session, thinking about all the coaches that I've already talked to, and I've got a good 25 more lined up.
Wow.
Like I mean, a solid 40 to 50 coaches said, I want to walk alongside you in this. And I sometimes think about that and I'm just like, wow, I'm so grateful to you all, but I'm also grateful to myself for doing a scary thing, reaching out saying, hey, I need some help. And would you all do it for free, by the way? Come on and help and do this so we can give it away.
Mhm.
All of that combined, just being like, but I thank myself all the time for being bold enough, brave enough, and creative enough
Mhm.
to to put all that together. And I even remember like when I had the idea, I was like, oh, why didn't I think of this soon? It was like
Mhm.
I just knew, every fiber of my being just knew. And of course, it wasn't until after that I was like, oh no, what will people think? And I just kind of like worked through that and got some coaching around that. But thank you for acknowledging that. And it's fun because I was acknowledging myself on my walk today.
I'm glad. I think that's so healthy
Hmm.
and more would benefit from doing that on a regular basis, I think. So
Yeah. And
good for you.
I think of it as like, because I've done the work to like genuinely love myself. I'm the person that's supposed to take care of me.
Hmm.
And this is part of me taking care of me. And the fact that it could potentially help someone else is just
Hmm.
such a bonus. Whipped
It
cream,
is.
cherry, hot fudge on top. Like
Hmm.
that's so amazing. But ultimately, I'm taking care of me.
Yeah.
And I wish, yeah, like you said, I wish more of us could stop and ask ourselves that. What is it that I need to take care of
Yeah.
me? Yeah. So, whew, awesome.
Deep breath.
conversation. We're already like
Yes.
40 minutes in, but is
Yes.
there anything that we want to show? Since this will be a video, people can watch it, or even
Oh,
if they're just listening, is there
sure.
anything that we do maybe could show them so they can have an idea what it looks like to work with you?
Yeah. So I think I can share my screen.
Yeah.
I have an offer for your listeners,
Mhm.
and I think I'm going to probably publish this to my podcast as well, but probably not till much later.
Yeah.
But I have an offer. Anybody who uses the code, it's your name, SARAHBOND 50 will get 50% off, half off of a story mapping session with me. And I'll get you the links that you can put in your
Yeah.
show notes.
Yeah.
But it's a 75-minute intensive where we go through what I explained at the beginning of the call. We drop in, we do a body scan, breathing work, energy clearing, and then we explore some of your stories, whatever comes up. And part of that is a mini workbook I've created, and I'm just going to show a little bit.
Okay. Great.
Um, Tell me when you can see it.
Mhm.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So it's a PDF.
Okay.
This is the workbook. Um, this kind of is the visual of story mapping. And the idea is I have them envision that they're right here, this little dot in the middle. You are here.
Yeah.
This is where you've been. This is where you're going. And by the end of the session, you are more empowered to see how where you've been, you have the power to determine how
Mhm.
where you've been determines where you're going. So I'll just briefly scroll through. You can kind of see the questions that we go through, considerations that we make, but that comes with the session as well. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
It's got extra space to write it or, whether you want to print it out or use it in a PDF form,
Okay.
either works.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, I would love to extend that offer to anybody listening.
Yes.
It's powerful, transformative work.
Hmm. Yeah. Now I think because I'm a coach and I've kind of been immersed in this world, I understand, I think, what story means,
Hmm.
right? Whereas I'm thinking about, me before I'd ever even heard of coaching or mindset work or anything like that. And I'm even thinking about like some of my friends who are still like, they just aren't in those circles. They're going to be like, story work? What do you mean? So I would just love to hear, like, again, like briefly in a few sentences,
Yeah.
what exactly, I know what I want to say what story means, but
Okay.
I
I'll
want to
share
hear.
with you what I learned from my story coaching certification
Okay.
coaches from
Yeah.
Coach and Kim Job. This is the way they explain it.
Mm-hmm.
By nature, humans are storytellers. Okay. Everyone has a life story to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And our stories are how we make sense of our world. Think about the stories that have been passed down from your parents, your grandparents, that maybe some of them have even come to them from their parents and grandparents, right? So when things happen in life,
Mm-hmm.
you move, uh, parents get divorced, you experience the death of a loved one, right? When things happen in life, subconsciously, you interpret those things to mean something about you. So you're making up a story. You create a narrative. Well, this happened and because of this, or maybe if only this hadn't happened, then maybe I
Mm,
would still have my grandmother here. Or we we create a narrative of some kind to make sense of that for ourselves. It's kind of a way to accept it, cope with it,
yeah.
maybe make ourselves feel better. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the primary motivating factor for why we do anything is how it makes us feel. So that story now has the power to affect you moving forward
Mhm.
because you've kind of created it and you believe it. So it feels true to you. And the
Yeah.
more that the more that that story kind of plays out in your life, it feels even more true, right?
Yeah, you
Maybe.
collect evidence for it.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So that's how looking at these stories from our past can help us identify when, where, what were the circumstances when I started to create stories, and
Mhm.
how else is that showing up in my life? Because at the time, those stories, they protected you, right? Maybe they helped you to feel safe in however you made sense of your world using that story. But that was then, and now they're getting in your way, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. How do you like when you're working with somebody, how do you identify, or is it fairly easy and obvious? Like, is everything a story?
Well, that's the beauty is, as a coach, we're a facilitator, and I truly approach this from the viewpoint that I don't have the answers for you. You have them within you, and I help them cultivate and experience things, cultivate those experiences that help them create that self-trust, right? That self-confidence, that help them to make sense of their world. Because just because a client shares something with me, it's their meaning that is what matters. It's their meaning that actually rolls out in their life, right? So I think that's just going to depend on who the client is, what it is they're navigating, what particular experiences or memories are coming up for them at the time, and what that could mean.
Yeah.
I can offer something to them, but really what matters is what they're offering to themselves.
And I feel like you're able to, like, maybe some people don't even realize
Hmm.
what that they have a story or what
Hmm.
it is. And then you're able to just like kind of unearth it, so
Yeah.
to speak, and kind of put it out on the coffee
Like,
table and take a look at it. And
mhm. In a recent session with a client that was experiencing some more difficult emotions, I'll just share a few things just to keep it, sterilized and just to kind of illustrate a point. And part of what they were envisioning as their eyes were closed and we were walking through this exercise,
Mhm.
I think this was particularly about some emotions they were feeling. I asked them to describe a color. How does it feel? Is it, heavy? Is it light? Is it, and this time, for some reason, I said, if it were a weather report, what would it be?
Yeah.
And
Great.
that was a really good one because essentially what they saw was a lot of clouds and it was kind of dark and very kind of opaque.
Hmm.
However, kind of above those clouds, they could see beyond, and there was the sun.
Hmm.
There was light. There was a green and grassy field. And so for them, what was meaningful was seeing that contrast. And so that's what I was trying to help them to see is it might feel very cloudy, very dark, very opaque right now. But beyond that, just as what you saw in your whatever, our exercise when I was asking them to describe that feeling, there is a green, grassy, sunny open field beyond those clouds. Green is symbolic of rebirth. The
Mm.
sun, lots of symbolism with the
Okay.
sun, love, warmth, divinity. So it's it's really less about like it's not anything about me as the coach. I truly see myself as a facilitator and offer thoughts, ideas, maybe help them find the steps that are already waiting and ready for
Yeah.
them.
Well, just such a creative, I've never heard that question before
Hmm.
in all in the experience I've had or in all of my years as a coach, to ask someone as they're getting in touch with what they're feeling to describe it as what kind of weather, what does it look like? That's so creative. And what I love, what just again just makes you unique and different
Mhm.
from all of us might be, somewhat similar, coaching on maybe some similar things, but we're all so unique.
We
And I
are.
and I love that. So what you're describing is, it sounded to me anyway that it was less about like this story or narrative that I keep maybe verbalizing in my head versus like getting in touch with the
Mhm.
story in my body.
In that particular instance,
Yeah.
we were giving attention to some specific feelings that
Okay.
were being felt in a certain place.
Yeah.
And
And
so I
that's what
was
I'm
just,
learning, is that like the body has a lot
Mhm.
to show
Yeah.
me. Not really
And
say,
so
but show.
it's really phenomenal. I'm currently in emotional alchemy certification with Sarah Trapkus. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm loving it. I'm absorbing all of it like a sponge. It feels so aligned. It feels so good. I love everything about it. But it's phenomenal what our body is waiting to tell us, waiting to show us if
Yeah.
we just get quiet.
Yeah. My
And
first session in this series was with Sarah Trapkus.
okay, then
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody listens, they'll remember I talked about, and I've had people tell me about listening to that episode and how I had this imagery about the volcano and the lava and all of this in that session,
Mhm.
which was so fascinating. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's astonishing to me when I am able to just get out of my head, and I'm always delighted by what my body shows me.
Hmm.
It's
Isn't it amazing?
so fascinating. And all we have to
Hmm.
do is slow the heck down
Yeah. Hmm.
and listen or observe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
What
spot
would,
on.
yeah, what would be like your parting words for, if there was one thing that you wished or hoped for people like to do, what would, we may have already even said it, but what would it be?
Here's what comes up for me.
Yeah.
Trust yourself.
Mm.
Trust what
Hmm.
your body is telling you. Trust what's coming up for you in your mind, in your heart, and your soul.
Hmm.
So often we'll commit to doing something because we think we're supposed to,
Yeah.
or it's what's expected of us in whatever, a social way, a familial way, a religious way, a educational way, right? And yet there's something physically going on for us, but we ignore it or we are not aware of it because we're so focused on this is what I'm supposed to do, right? But when you drop into your body and you can feel, it might feel like a knot, it might feel like just a stuckness, something heavy, maybe a heaviness in our lower solar plexus, our sacral area, our root chakra. Listen to that
Yeah.
because you're out of alignment. And so there's a reason why you're feeling that. And so that's your invitation right there to pause, connect with yourself, get curious. Why? What's going on? I made this choice and yet I feel this way. I wonder why. How do I really feel about it? And when we learn how to connect with that higher self, your higher self knows. And
Yeah.
it's magical, but it's real. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good
Wonderful. Yeah.
question.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So if somebody does want to get in touch with you, and I know I'll have these in the notes, but I still want, in case,
Yeah.
somebody's just listening, how can they work with you? How do they find you?
So my website is meganskidmorecoaching.com. Just make sure you spell Megan correctly. It's Meagan. And all the links are there. I'm also on Instagram. Megan Skidmore Coaching is my handle, and Facebook as well. I'm not really super active on many of the other social platforms right now. I have moved over to Blue Sky. I'm hoping to build some community there. Just don't know what to expect right now with some of the social platforms out there. But for now, you
Okay.
can email me hello@meganskidmorecoaching.com.
And you said you had a podcast. What was the
I
name?
do. I do. So I have had a podcast for a little over 2.5 years now. I have been calling it Beyond the Shadow of Doubt.
Mhm.
Coming from a conservative faith background, as a parent of a queer child, my foundation just crumbled, and it was very in some ways somewhat traumatic. And I went through a lot of things, cognitive dissonance being one of them. And I realized how much shame was coming up, how much guilt came up when I started to question or try to and actually admit that I had questions and that I had doubts. And so I created this podcast to let's diminish that stigma. Let's shine doubt in the light. It's a good thing. Doubt is what refines our faith. Doubt is what invites questions. That's how we learn things, right? Last year it started to get a little bit heavy, just focusing on all these pain points, and I felt inspired to reimagine it. And so as of January, it's living beyond the shadow of doubt. I'm focusing on the joy that comes when you take those steps into the unknown and you see what's waiting on the other side. All of the other side of maybe is what I call it.
Yeah.
Just possibilities and beauty and joy you could just never have seen. And
Hmm.
I've had some amazing interviews with folks that have learned to live in their spiritual sovereignty and to listen to their higher self, follow their intuition. And it's just amazing. It's so much fun. I love it.
Amazing. And you also mentioned you're writing a book. That's
Yes.
so that when do you have like sort of maybe an expected
Yeah,
release date?
it's in the editing process. And so I'm thinking in the spring of 2025 sometime.
Yeah,
It's called Transparency:
you mentioned.
How I Learned to See Through My Journey as a Parent of a Transgender Kiddo. So transparency is spelled TRANSPARENTSEE. So
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
thank you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you. And if for those of you, if anybody's on the other side listening, my podcast is called Forgive Everyone for Everything Every Day Right Away. And it kind of it's fun because we
That is
both sort of
fabulous.
started. It's fun to watch the evolvement of it, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it? To see
It
it sort of
is.
evolve and grow as we go through life.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, so mine started out like I'm so cute, such a precious, baby coach, like really studying forgiveness and all of these things in like a challenging marriage. And then I went through like a very painful divorce and then like a rebirth where I just fell in love with myself. And then I found, this amazing partner and then, very suddenly and unexpectedly lost him. So I would say this part of my podcast is kind of chapter 3 and just sort of like
Oh,
walking.
wow.
So, chapter 1 being forgiveness, chapter 2 being like falling in love with yourself, chapter 3 being the somatic work of, navigating, challenging
Love it.
emotions, whether it's grief, whatever. I hope people can watch these episodes and learn
Mhm.
ways to care
Yeah.
for themselves in a,
Very cool. I
yeah.
love your work so much, Sarah.
Thank you. You as well. And I look forward to watching each other continue to just add love to the world.
Same, same. Thank you so much for arranging this collaboration. So good. I've loved it. Sending
Awesome.
you love and all your listeners love.
All right. Thank you, Derek. Talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.